Hey there! You're listening to Amplify Your Legacy. This podcast is packed with insights and strategies to turn your passion into something that endures for generations. So get comfortable, stay inspired, and let's jump into today's episode with your host, Salana Brown.
All righty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amplify Your Legacy podcast. Today, we have a fascinating conversation lined up that blends the thrill of motorsports with something that you might not immediately associate with it, emotional and social intelligence. And who better to guide us through this than Jessica Soodeen? Jessica is a powerhouse, an engineer, a race engineer, a driver coach, a speaker, and quite honestly, one of the most dynamic thinkers that I've had the pleasure of speaking with. So she's here to talk about racing to empathy. I love that.
Thanks. Yes.
I love that. Yes. And how motorsports analogy can teach us powerful lessons in teamwork, decision-making, and human connection. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're all about pushing boundaries, obviously, with motorsports, breaking barriers and making sure people feel seen and heard, whether it's at the racetrack, in a boardroom, or on stage. Can you start by telling us a little bit more about you and what got you fired up about what you do?
I would love to. It's a funny story. When I was in university doing mechanical engineering, I won motorcycle lessons. It was totally rigged. The guys who had it that I won the motorcycle lessons thought, your personality, you need to be on motorcycles. So I didn't grow up riding bikes or anything like this. So I started riding motorcycles on the street. I used to go to the track every year to get to learn my bike a little bit more and, practice those same skills at higher speeds. And then someone, said, hey, you're kind of slow, but you're very good in traffic and you've got a really good head about you. Have you thought about racing? Salana, I went home, I ripped out the headlights in my bike, I took off the signals, I was turning it into a race bike, basically. And over the years of racing, it kind of opened up my eyes to say, well, if I'm working in an office and then working at the racetracks all this time, why don't I put these together? Yeah. So I donated, sold, burned almost everything I owned, and I moved to northern Spain to go and earn that master's in motorsport racing. Yeah. So it was fabulous to work at the best racetracks all over Europe, learn Spanish. I speak French as well, so learning a little bit of German when I worked for German teams, and then coming back to corporate and climbing the corporate ladder with all of this cultural experience working with race cars. It was just brilliant. It's really nice. And then a few years ago, I decided to resign from my corporate jobs, and I wanted to spread my special love and my special gifts of communication, and I started studying a lot more about emotional intelligence, social intelligence, situational awareness, cultural lessons, and started doing what I love, and that's being on stage, talking to lots of people, speaking at conferences. I do workshops at the university in the engineering leadership programs, speak at girls' schools. It's just spreading the love.
Love it. Definitely. And I love how you're making something as fast-paced and high stakes as motorsports directly applicable to how we can interact and communicate every day. I imagine people don't expect to hear empathy and race engineering in the same sentence. How do you help them make that connection?
Well, one of my great examples is talking about pit stops. So, in Formula One, I never worked in Formula One. I worked in feeder classes to Formula One. But in Formula One, a good pit stop is under 2 seconds.
Okay.
Good pit stop is under 2 seconds. So if you've had some microaggressions that had happened maybe the night before, or, someone got a little offended by one of their buddies while they were, packing up the track, then all of a sudden, when you're pulling that tire over and handing it to someone else, if you wait 0.1 of a second, you might have lost the race, literally the race. So this teamwork and this empathy is so important. And I think what happens, and it happens everywhere, is this whole us and them thing.
Okay.
So maybe it was the us engineers and the them mechanics, or maybe it's the us manufacturing and the procurement department. There's so many of this us and them, and it's really trying to break down those barriers by bringing empathy into it. Let's get into each other's shoes. Let's understand our pain points from the other person's point of view. And what happens is that people just get proactive. When the love comes, they just want to help other people, right? So it's not the us and them anymore. It's just us.
It's just us. I love that. Now let's, I guess, rewind a bit. You started as a mechanical design engineer, and then
That's
you
right.
made the incredible pivot into motorsports.
Oh,
I've
yes.
got to ask, what was the specific moment you realized this is it, this is where I need to be, or was it gradual?
Even you asking the questions, I give myself goosebumps. So one of my internship bosses lent me a book, and it was by a very famous motorcycle dynamicist, Tony Foale. And he lent me this book, and I didn't know who Tony was. I didn't know a lot about motorsports. And when I started reading it, I was like, oh, Tony does workshops all over the world. I'm going to email him. Doo-doo-doo. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm an engineer and I like motorcycles. Go, huh? You know, like you just have no idea. I'm reaching out to this very world famous motorcycle dynamicist. He's done Isle of Man 5 times, these motorcycle races that are just crazy. And as I offered to bring him to Canada, as we were talking, and I did bring him to Canada, and I hosted a couple of his seminars, one in Vancouver, one in Calgary. Oh yeah, and people were coming out of the woodworks. They're like, "What do you mean you brought Tony Foale?" I'm like, "Well, he's staying at my house. He's a really nice guy, you know." And it was him that really said, "Hey, Jess, well, why aren't these two things together? Like, you're obviously a driven person." And so Tony and I started looking for schools overseas, and I found this one in Basque Country, a 1-year master's, and applied and got in. And yeah, but there were only about, in those series that I was working in for the first few years there was only about 3 or 4 other women engineers
Of course.
in these series. Yeah, very few of us then.
I definitely know that that's what attracted me to you, just the engineering part of it. That's amazing. I'm really into STEM for
Cool.
girls. Mhm. Yeah.
I just spoke at a local school for some STEM stuff as well. I love it. It's so fun.
So do I. I see that that's a powerful shift for you. And I love that you're not just stepping into motorsports, you're fully immersed yourself into it. And I heard you even built motors in your own living room. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yeah. Just around when Holt came in, I had imported a motorcycle from New Zealand because I had some Yamaha support, and you could find Hondas all over the place. But this is before Facebook. This is before real YouTube. And I imported it from New Zealand and brought it straight into my living room.
Wow.
I got the truck to deliver it to my house, and we just lifted it up, put it in the living room, and I had a Japanese manual. And I started trying to teach myself how to assemble motors. So I built 3 motors every winter for this little bike. But that was also very strategic. So I did this because in the future, to be a race engineer, whether it's motorcycles, 2 wheels, cars, 4 wheels, you have to have the credibility. You have to have the
I love
credibility.
that. Yeah, that level of hands-on commitment must have shaped your problem-solving skills and your teamwork skills. How has that hands-on experience influenced the way you now coach and you teach other people?
Oh, when I'm teaching anyone, if there's an opportunity to go and be in the field, to go and, actually do your own, like 3D printing, for example, is a wonderful thing now that wasn't around back then either, right? So now you can make your own designs, because what are you doing? You're building that empathy again, because now I know what it feels like. You can't get a wrench in there, so I need to move this bolt over here. Oh, now I can get the wrench in because these things are in the way. Now it's again to build or to break down those us and them barriers, because now you're doing it with your hands. And in fact, when I'm speaking at universities or I'm speaking at STEM events, a lot of the time when people are thinking, well, I really want to get into management, you got your whole life to get into management. Like go do boots on the ground kind of work while you're like young, healthy, joints don't hurt, menopause hasn't hit, whatever it is, right?
Did you always want to do engineering?
Big secret. I got fantastic marks in all of my computer programming courses.
Wow.
But it didn't light a fire in me. I like the problem solving and everything, but mechanical engineering was something that I was very interested in a later age. Like I was into my 20s when I started university, but I wasn't the best at it. So I had to work really hard. So even same as motorsports. I mean, the first time that I raced my own motorcycle, I was 29.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe 28, 29. Yeah, I was just turning 29. So I didn't start off with this. And like you said, it was one of those things that this is my new hobby, turned obsession, turned career, turned, absolutely changing my life completely for it.
Okay, gotcha. That's very interesting. As you stepped into motorsports, was there ever a moment that you felt that you had to prove yourself in a way that others didn't? How did you handle it?
Just one. No, one of the things that I used to do a lot was I would take my mechanics into where I had my laptop and I would show them me building my motorcycle in my living room so that they knew that I understand, the pain it is to say, oh God, I know we all want to go back to the hotel, but that car just hit a curb really hard and we have to do weights and we have to stay and we have to do some setup work on the car, but you just have to kind of prove to that person as, when I was building my motorcycles, I had deadlines to work with as well. And I was throwing myself down a racetrack at, 140 miles an hour, 200 kilometers an hour with the engines that I built. So there were times where I just had to demonstrate that. Whereas maybe some of my colleagues didn't have to go through that same extent of building credibility.
Gotcha.
But I did with a smile. And I was happy to share, and it built friendships. And
yes, I got you. Okay, so I want to zoom out a little bit. When people think of legacy, they often picture something distant or something abstract. But I know you're very intentional about how you show up and the impact that you're making. What is the legacy do you want to be known for, and how are you building it right now?
Well, the legacy that I really want to be known for is that piece about making people feel heard, making people feel that I am listening to you. I'm listening to what you have to say. I care about what you have to say. And when asked for guidance, I'm happy to give it. So I think that one of the biggest feelings that comes up with that is pride. And it's a good pride, not a bad pride. It's not ego-based. It's really watching other people grow. So I've had 2 or 3 young engineers go into motorsports because they were inspired and reached out a couple of times along their journey about where to go. And it's incredible to watch that sort of thing. It's a beautiful legacy to start to build.
I love that. That's really powerful. And for our listeners who are inspired by the conversation, what's one practical step that they can take today to amplify their own legacy, whether it's in leadership, communications, or personal growth?
Yeah. Something that a really great thing that I've been doing recently that's really easy that I never did before was a lot more recording of myself, writing a little bit more. I'm a published author now, and my book's behind me there. Thank you. And that one's about my very first motorcycle race that I bombed and the lesson of self-forgiveness. And I'm just I'm launching another book in August or in April, and that's around grief because I was my mom's end-of-life caregiver. So there's, I think, really stepping out of your comfort zone and doing a little bit of writing, doing a little bit of recording. This helps to put you in the mindset of legacy.
Yes, and that's such a beautiful legacy that you're building and things that you'll be known for, taking care of a parent. is very hard, but that's so
Yes.
beautiful that you did that.
It was the hardest gift that I could ever give, and the ultimate gift to give someone, I think.
I love that. hmm So,
Yeah.
Jessica, this has been a very eye-opening conversation. I loved how you broke down your high performance principles in a way that's completely accessible. And we can imagine ourselves and actually imagine seeing you in your living room building your motor. That's beautiful.
Maybe my next one will tell us to start bringing my motorcycle on the road with me when I do keynotes and just having it on stage.
That would be a nice visual. Yes.
Yeah.
So whether people are leading a corporate team, running a startup, or just looking to level up, what you represent, the legacy that you're building is really going to help them. So before we wrap up, where can people find more about you and how can they work with you?
So for, I would say the younger of the crowds, on Instagram, I am the Jessica Soodeen, and Soodeen is spelled SOODEEN. And I'm also on LinkedIn. Please send a message. I offer 30-minute complimentary discovery calls.
Love it. Love it. Amazing. Thank you once again, Jessica, for sharing your insights and your energy and your passion with us today.
Thank you. And you are a spectacular, spectacular podcast interviewer, may I say.
Really appreciate that. I love connecting with you all, and I love having something of value for our listeners.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And for everyone listening today, if you got so much out of this as I did, make sure you check out Jessica's work and start applying some of the lessons today. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and maybe even take a motorsport approach to your next challenge. Bye-bye for now.
That's all for this episode of Amplify Your Legacy. A huge thank you for listening in today. I hope today's conversation has sparked some reflection on your own legacy. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Solana Brown. And visit SolanaBrown.com for more resources on growing and preserving your legacy. Be sure to leave a rating or review. It helps others discover the show. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with inspiration and actionable strategies. Until next time, keep amplifying your legacy.